there's things whirring around. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to answer a question, but before I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the title of this, which is, should we listen to our brain and all that internal chatter? Which I think is a really good question. Should we listen to our brain? Why does our brain sometimes feel like it's out to get us? If you're anything like me, you do a lot of thinking. I'm not sure whether you know, but I do a weekly podcast with my mentor and the chap that did my training for me many moons ago, Bob Cook. And it was something that we were speaking about when we were recording a podcast earlier on today. And it's also something that's come up with clients this week. And it's also touching on a question that I was asked. So I thought, well, why not do this little chat on that? It's only going to be a quick one tonight. It's only probably going to be about 10 or 15 minutes. Not for any particular reason, but just because everybody's being really quiet. If you want to ask me a question, I post on all my social media, just a little thread. I go live on Parent Plus page and the private group. I go live on my Jackie Jones coaching page and the Living Life Being Human private group connected to that. And I usually just put a little thread up saying, ask me any questions. And this is where I'm going to answer all those questions. If you want me to give you a shout out, I'm happy to do that. If you want me to keep it confidential, I'm happy to do that as well. But everybody's been really quiet lately. And it kind of got me thinking this week as well. There's been quite a few posts about the NHS being overwhelmed with people needing therapy and everything. And I thought, that's very true. But this is me offering to answer any questions that you've got around psychotherapy or relationships or parenting or anything. So please take advantage of that. You can ask me any questions at all about anything to do with mental health and well-being. And this is a safe space where I will answer it, keep you confidential. But it's just my way of trying to pay it forward while we're all going through whatever it is that we're going through at the moment. So yeah, take advantage of it. And it gives me something to talk about. So back to the brain. Why does our brain do what it does sometimes? Why, when something good is happening, do we look for the negatives in it? And it's all about survival. Our brain is not out to get us. Our brain is out to protect us against anything and everything that it can do. And it's kind of like that annoying friend that, maybe it's just me, but we all have that annoying friend, I think, that is kind of like doom and gloom and always puts a dampener on everything. And when you say, I've been invited to go out, so I'm going to go to this nightclub with this group of people, and they kind of go, oh, do you really think you should be doing that in your condition or at your age or on a school night or whatever it is? And that's kind of what our brain does. It always errs on the side of caution. It will always catastrophize pretty much any event that's going on for us. If you've been out on a night out and you thought you had a really good night, you get home, you kick your shoes off, you sit there, and then you start to replay an awful lot of it. And you think, oh, should I have said that? Maybe I was a bit full on tonight. Maybe I shouldn't have drunk quite as much as what I did. They won't invite me out again. What am I going to do about all of that? All that internal chatter that we have going on is our brain's way of just protecting us from anything and everything that it thinks we need protecting against. And it was a conversation that I was having earlier on today with a client. And it basically makes up stories. That's what it does. And when we start to buy into those stories, they then become real and they then become a thing because we're bringing them to life. One of the things that I talk about quite a lot with clients is about resistance and acceptance. If we know, as soon as that internal dialogue starts and as soon as our brain starts doing that, ooh, really? Should you have done that? The more we try to resist that, the more it will come at us because it's doing it for what it thinks is the best of intention. It's the best reason. It's to keep us alive. It's to prevent us from anything going wrong in our lives. It just literally shuts the door on everything. It's like that party pooper, or very parental with us, where it kind of stops us from doing anything that it thinks is going to cause us any harm or damage. but as soon as we start to accept that that's what's happening, we don't need to buy into the story. We can just, start. I do it all the time. Yeah, okay, I can hear what you're saying. You might have a point, but I'm not really going to pay any attention to you. Just slow the thinking down. That in itself can be enough. So when I say about acceptance, it's understanding why our brain does what it does. That's what's causing our anxiety a lot of the time, is the overthinking and our brain trying to protect us. So in a way, it's about acknowledging that, accepting it, and just kind of giving it a nod and saying, thanks for that, but you're okay, I've kind of got this. Which leads on to the question, how do I not give attention to upsetting thoughts at work? By doing what I've just said and noticing the thoughts. The first thing is awareness. I talk about awareness all the time. Once we're aware of what's what's happening, it's not as anxiety provoking. It doesn't impact on us quite as much. It's kind of like I think I've said it in some of these other lives about our triggers. When we get triggered, if we're triggered, all it means is that something from our past is coming to our present. And we do that all the time as human beings, because again, it's our brain's way of protecting us. It kind of logs everything that it thinks is a bad experience. So if it gets a whiff of that in the here and now, it's going to just remind us of it. So being aware of how the brain works, it's, I talk quite a lot about apophenia and what apophenia is. And apophenia is connecting up the dots. So if, and I know I've spoke about this quite a few times, if you catch a train and something's happened, I don't know, you had to wave goodbye to your best friend who was moving abroad or something, and you got on a train and you were quite emotional about it, and you started, crying or just feeling not well on the train, your brain will start to connect all of that in place. It won't look at the reasons why that's happening. It will look at, okay, trains are no good. If you're sat in a crowded train, it will think crowded trains are definitely no good. We don't want to be doing this again. If there's somebody playing music, that song could trigger something for you next time you hear that song. And it connects all these dots up that are totally irrelevant and then builds up a story around it. And that then becomes a thing for you. So it's about you understanding what's going on so that it doesn't catch you unawares. A similar thing happened to me catching a plane, 30 years ago. And I didn't fly for so long because I thought I had a fear of flying. It's absolutely nothing to do with a fear of flying. I don't have a fear of flying. I actually quite enjoy flying. And I've been on quite a few flights recently and they've been absolutely fine. But because I had one bad experience of flying, my brain has kind of logged all of that stuff and come up with the best case scenario that it could, that flying is no good. We don't want to do that anymore. And it took me a long time to, I want to say, force myself to get on a plane just to test my theories as to whether I do like flying or I don't like flying. And I actually quite like it. So the first thing is about awareness, and the second thing is about resisting and accepting. And when we accept this is what it's like to be a human being, and that sometimes our brain does play tricks on us. And when I say brain, I mean the organ of the brain. It's not our mind. Our mind doesn't play tricks on us. Our mind is quite an intelligent thing. And, if we're looking at the three principles and we're talking about our innate wellness, that's our mind working for the best of us. As human beings, we always want to get back to balance, but our brain hasn't evolved as well. It's still working like it did when we were cavemen, and its only job in this world is to keep us alive. And it thinks if we avoid certain situations, if we overthink everything, if I look at every case scenario, usually worst case scenario, then that's going to keep me alive. But we need to just befriend it and give it a pat on the head and let it know that everything is okay and we don't need to protect ourselves against everything. So those would be my tips for how to not give attention to upsetting thoughts. A thought is just a thought until we bring it to life. Once we bring it to life and build up a story around it, then it kind of gets logged in our brain for future use. So it's just about take it to court. Just look at it for what it is, what's actually gone on, and what are the upsetting thoughts that you're having. There might be a theme to it for you. It might be just in a work situation where this impacts on you rather than a personal situation. Or it might be, that you feel like people are making fun of you. And that might remind you of something that happened when you were younger, maybe at school. So give it a little bit of attention to try and work out where it's coming from. But the main attention should be on, reality checking with it. And is this actually what's going on? Am I being super sensitive towards this? And if I am, what can I do about it? How can I reality check everything and make sure that, this is not as bad as what it seems to be at the moment? And just understand that our brain is really good at making up stories and scenarios that aren't true. So I hope that's helped. As I said, this is just going to be a short and sweet one tonight because I only had one question to answer. I'm just looking if there's anything else that I wrote down, which there isn't. So I'm going to leave it there. Please feel free to ask me some questions so that I've got something more to talk about on these lives. If you want me to give you a shout out, I'm absolutely fine to do that. You can pop over onto my private platform, which is away from social media. If you don't want to post under the comments that are going up on social media, you can do that at livinglifebeinghuman.com, and it's free to join. There's a lovely group of people in there. I think we're up to probably about 55 or 56 now, which is wonderful. And I always post everything on there before it goes out on social media, so you get first dibs on things. And other than that, I shall see you all next week for the next Cunning Live that's coming up. I'm going to try and stop this now so that all my buttons go off. I'm going to push all the stop